NBC makes a shocking change to their NASCAR broadcasting lineup, and Kyle Larson says it would be easy to get to 1,000 horsepower if NASCAR just gives the order. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. If you're looking for even more NASCAR debate and discussion, tune in tonight on this channel. I'll be hosting a live stream. I'll be joined by several other NASCAR online content creators. We'll cover lots of great topics. I'm sure many hot takes will be spewed. Hope to see you there tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Set a reminder. Kyle Larson called in to the Dale Jr. Download this week and said it would be easy for Hendrick Motorsports to put 1,000 horsepower under the hood this weekend.
I've heard our Scotty Maxim say the same thing. He's like, dude, we could bring 1,000 horsepower next week,
right?
And it not anymore. They're literally taking the engine that I won with at Vegas and making it a 1,000 horsepower engine to put in one of Rick's personal cars they're building right now. So they can do it.
I know it's boring to keep talking about this, especially when we don't really know if adding more horsepower will actually make a huge difference and make the racing better. Keep in mind, the racing at the intermediate tracks with the next gen has been fantastic so far. It's really just the short ovals and maybe the road courses we're concerned with. Those strong comments from Kyle Larson were extremely interesting. I hate to make this issue sound so simple because I don't think that it is. All I do know is that increasing the horsepower would be easy to sell to both fans and drivers. I think NASCAR is afraid to do anything that could affect parity. Right now, the cars are equal. With shared SMT data, the drivers are practically equal. I don't think they'll ever outright admit this, but NASCAR is afraid of dominant drivers. Jimmy Johnson won 5 straight titles, and NASCAR reacted by tweaking the playoff format repeatedly. NASCAR introduced the 550 horsepower high drag package in 2019, I think in part to prevent Harvick, Kyle Busch, Truex from winning every race by 5 seconds. Chris Rice had a strong take on SiriusXM NASCAR radio today that I actually agree with.
If we give them horsepower, the field's going to be spread out because the handling is going to be so much worse. Your car might not handle as well or it might handle better. I feel that the field would be spread out more.
It's a tough balance because on one hand, parity is what separates NASCAR from Formula One, for example. It's, in my opinion, what makes NASCAR races so interesting to watch. You never know who could win. It's anyone's championship. But on the other hand, you need some great drivers to stand out to become superstars. If these next-gen cars suddenly had 1,000 horsepower under the hood, you bet there would be a few drivers that would stand out, start winning more races consistently. The gaps would start to widen. That would potentially help establish some superstar drivers, but it would likely hurt the parity. So obviously I'm just speculating, but history suggests NASCAR is afraid of dominant drivers. So it's a tricky balance. Real quick, before we get to the big NBC news, Bristol Motor Speedway this weekend, the Food City 500, I think it's still 500 laps, right? Food City has pulled off some awesome crossover paint schemes for this race the past few years. And their latest scheme for AJ Allmendinger, my gosh, it looks like my diet when I was in college. Cheetos and Mountain Dew, how about that? Hey, they go together like peanut butter and jelly. I love it. Great to see 2 very recognizable consumer brands on a NASCAR Cup Series car. I'm just a little disappointed that Cheetos are on a primary scheme and we didn't get a Trip Murphy tribute scheme. One more breaking news story this afternoon. Kamui Kobayashi will make his second career NASCAR Cup Series start. He'll drive the 2311 number 67 Toyota Camry at Circuit of the Americas next week. The Japanese driver made his debut at the Indianapolis Road Course last season. I'll be excited to see what he can do at COTA. Remember, this COTA race 1 year ago featured a ton of international superstars. This year's race doesn't seem to have quite the same build-up, quite the same international flair, but great to see Kamui Kobayashi back behind the wheel. Wish him the best of luck. Huge breaking news this morning, in my opinion. Adam Stern from the Sports Business Journal reports that Lee Diffie will take over lead play-by-play duties for NASCAR on NBC sometime after this year's Olympic break. Shocking development. Rick Allen, who's primarily held that role since 2015, is expected to call the first few NASCAR and NBC races this summer, but then will step down and instead will only commentate NASCAR Xfinity Series races on NBC this year. Adam Stern reports that NBC's 2025 plans are still unclear, but for this season, 2024, welcome Lee Diffie into the NASCAR on NBC broadcast booth full-time. Assuming Rick Allen does the first 6 NBC races, that includes the Iowa race on June 16th, the Chicago Street Race on July 7th, and the Brickyard 400 on July 21st. So Rick Allen, more than likely, will still be in the booth for some marquee events later this year. But Lee Diffie is expected to take over for the final few regular season races and the entire 10-race playoffs. Wow. This is just a reminder that we are well into TV silly season. You know, with Kevin Harvick stepping into his role with Fox, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was reported a couple weeks ago as leaving NBC for Amazon and Warner Brothers next year. It all makes sense, I guess, with one TV contract coming to an end and another one about to start. Both Fox, NBC, and now Amazon, Warner Brothers, the CW, they're viewing this as a great opportunity to reset, change things up, keep things fresh, potentially. I have so many questions about how things may reshuffle here in the coming months. Could Rick Allen follow Dale Earnhardt Jr. over to Amazon or Warner Brothers? What about Steve Letarte? Could he follow his former driver elsewhere? What about Jeff Burton, who's business partners with Jr. with the car store? Maybe he goes to Amazon or Warner Brothers. Will Lee Diffie be the full-time NASCAR and NBC commentator starting next year? Who's going to call Xfinity Series races next year for the CW? Maybe that'll be Rick Allen's role. Maybe Adam Alexander leaves Fox. Will someone from MRN move to TV? This was a huge report this morning. The idea that NBC could change lead commentators mid-season effectively, pretty unusual, very surprising in my opinion. I want to have some fun on this show. There's been a lot of talk lately in the sports world about the draft. You know, with NFL free agency ablaze this week, a lot of talk about draft picks. I'm going to pretend that I am a TV network executive, and my company has the rights to broadcast NASCAR races starting in 2025 and beyond. I need a veteran play-by-play announcer to anchor my broadcast. I've got my hypothetical mock draft board, and just for the record, I'm going to exclude Mike Joy from this conversation. I think he's a lock to be with Fox next year unless he chooses to retire, and I only say that because he'll be 75 years old this time next year. I think he's still very good in that role. He could continue doing it for several more years, but with, again, one contract ending, a new TV deal beginning, this could be Fox's chance to move Mike Joy into a different role, or perhaps he retires altogether. So I'm going to leave Mike Joy off my draft board just for that reason. My number one choice, no surprise, Alan Bestwick. He hasn't called a NASCAR race in, I don't know, almost a decade or so now, but he recently did SRX, and he's only 62 years old. He has easily another 10 plus years of quality TV work ahead.
But it's going to be Dale Earnhardt Jr. using lessons learned from his father to go from 6th to 1st and score the victory in the Pepsi 400.
I really hope he gets picked up next year, whether by Amazon, by Warner Brothers Discovery. Shoot, the CW picks him up. Alan Bestwick will call all 33 Xfinity Series races. Sign me up for that. Bestwick is my clear first overall draft pick. Second on my board, though, is Lee Diffie. He's a veteran motorsports broadcaster. There are a few better than him in the game currently. What I love about Lee Diffie is he doesn't sound passive. He's not going to stumble over his words repeatedly. He is a true professional who ups the intensity, enhances the action on my television screen. A lot of folks on social media today have been sharing this clip from when Lee Diffie did call a couple NASCAR Cup Series races back in 2017. Just check this out.
Larson's trying to split him. He's in between the two Toyotas. He bounces off Martin Truex Jr. right in front of Matt Kenseth, and he's on the low line. Kyle Larson with a blinding restart.
Ooh, if that doesn't get you on the edge of your seat, I don't know what will. My only concern with Lee Diffie, and this isn't really a concern of mine, but I could see some NASCAR fans having a hard time adjusting to his distinctive Australian accent. I'm just being realistic. NASCAR TV accents have sounded one way for the vast majority of the sport's history, and we all know that many fans don't adjust to aesthetic changes very well. But Lee Diffie is fantastic. I'm excited to hear what he can do the second half of this season. Third on my draft board would be Mike Bagley. That's right, give the radio guys some love. Mike Bagley's been calling NASCAR races for MRN since the 90s. I have no idea if TV is something he would even be interested in pursuing, but we've seen him do some work with NBC in the past during those radio-style road course broadcasts.
Brett Keselowski, Eric Jones is sideways. He and Keselowski make contact. Keselowski and Jones into the outside wall, and Brad will slam hard into the inside wall.
I think he's got a great voice. I think he has a great knowledge of the sport. I think he would do well leading a NASCAR television broadcast booth. At number 4, I guess I like this guy more than most other fans do, but Rick Allen. His voice was made for broadcasting.
He bumps him. They're going into one. The 4 up the racetrack. Here comes Hamlin on the inside.
He does fumble over his words. Sometimes he's not the most articulate, but I still like Rick Allen, and I'd be happy to see him broadcasting NASCAR races somewhere next season. And 5th on my board, I can't get out of here without giving some love to Adam Alexander. The man deserves a ton of credit for anchoring Fox's Xfinity Series broadcast the last few years. They bring in different driver analysts almost every week. He has to do the research, the homework, the prep work of 2 people.
One last try for the 54. He's the all-time wins leader. Can he get there?
I don't know if Fox will let him go, only because he could be, seen as Mike Joy's eventual successor. Vince Welsh didn't work out. I don't think Jamie Little is working out, so Adam Alexander may be next in line at Fox. But on my hypothetical mock draft board, I think he's certainly a top 5 pick. There are certainly other worthy candidates out there. Let me know in the comments below if there's somebody I missed that you think would do great leading a NASCAR television broadcast. I thought that would be a fun way to sort of talk about TV silly season, if you will. Of course, the color commentary is extremely important as well. You get former drivers, former crew chiefs in there as analysts. But you need that anchor to be someone who's very familiar with the media industry. They've been doing it their whole life. They know how to effectively tell the story, how to cue people up. You need that TV person in the middle to tie the whole broadcast together. It's an important role. I'll be curious to see who Fox, Turner, Amazon, CW, NBC. I'll be really curious to see how this game of musical chairs ends up by 2025. What was your reaction to the news today that NBC is expected to replace Rick Allen with Lee Diffie midway through this season? What's your reaction? Huge surprise, I believe. But thank you for watching this video, y'all. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and as always, a huge thank you to my very generous Patreon supporter. Y'all help keep this show growing each and every month. If you missed it this morning, posted the full interview with Todd Gilliland, talked all about the changes at Front Row Motorsports. They're a Tier 1 Ford team now, how things changed behind the scenes. Talked about Todd Gilliland's career, going straight from trucks to Cup a few years back, still one of the young guys in the series. How has he adjusted? Great conversation. I hope you check it out. I will see you all again soon, maybe tonight for the NWP stream at 8 p.m. Eastern. Have a good rest of your day, folks.